Dragon Endurance departed the International Space Station at 8:20 a.m. Pacific Time Monday morning. On board Crew 7 are NASA's Jasmin Moghbeli, ESA astronaut Andreas Mogensen, JAXA astronaut Satoshi Furukawa, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov. Currently, they're on their way to the targeted splashdown site just off the coast of Pensacola, Florida. My name is Kate Tice, Senior Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX, and joining me today from NASA Communications is Sandra Jones. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Kate. It is great to be here. Upon departing the International Space Station, Dragon underwent a sequence of departure burns. The crew also had a rest period and has since kicked off preparations for re-entry, including getting in their launch and re-entry spacesuits and successfully performing a leak check on those suits. This next phase of the mission is when things will really start to amp up, and Dragon has a series of steps to complete before returning Crew 7 home.
First, Dragon will maneuver to the correct attitude and jettison its trunk, which is the cylindrical, unpressurized part of the spacecraft. The trunk is currently connected to the aft or the bottom section of the Dragon capsule, and that's where the heat shield is located. So, in order to expose that heat shield and get the vehicle ready for atmospheric re-entry, we're going to jettison that trunk.
And from there, the spacecraft will use its forward thrusters to perform a deorbit burn, which will put Dragon on a trajectory to return to Earth. This burn will last about 14 minutes once it starts. The deorbit burn uses Draco thrusters on Dragon, primarily the four located on the forward bulkhead, and is executed at the apogee, or the highest point of Dragon's current orbit around the Earth. This will alter Dragon's path to ultimately line it up to re-enter Earth's atmosphere and splash down off the coast of Florida. Splashdown is planned for 2:47 a.m. Pacific, 5:47 a.m. Eastern this morning, again off the coast of Pensacola, Florida.
Let's take a minute to meet our crew.
First up is Lieutenant Colonel Jasmin Moghbeli, who hails from Baldwin, New York, and earned a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the Naval Postgraduate School. She also graduated with honors from the U.S. Naval Test Pilot School. As an AH-1W Super Cobra pilot and Marine Corps test pilot, she has flown more than 150 combat missions. In all, she accrued 2,000 hours of flight time in more than 25 aircraft. At the time of her selection as an astronaut, Moghbeli was testing H-1 helicopters and serving as the Quality Assurance and Avionics Officer for VMX-1. She is also the proud mom of twin girls. With this mission, she will have logged an estimated 199 days in space during her first space flight, including 6 hours and 42 minutes during a spacewalk. And today, she is the commander of Crew 7.
Sitting next to Jasmin is pilot Andreas Mogensen. This is Mogensen's second trip to the space station. His first was as the flight engineer for the ESA IRIS mission in 2015. He was born in Copenhagen, Denmark, and graduated with an international baccalaureate from the Copenhagen International School, a master's degree in aeronautical engineering from Imperial College London, and a doctorate in aerospace engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. In 2015, Mogensen became the first Danish person to go to space and currently is serving as the European Astronaut Liaison Officer to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. With this mission, he will have logged 209 days in space across 2 flights.
Next up in the role of mission specialist is Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Satoshi Furukawa. Furukawa's interest in space began when he was 5 years old and saw the Apollo 11 moon landing on TV. He was also a fan of the Japanese TV space hero Ultra 7. His professional career began as a medical doctor, but after seeing a news report about Japan auditioning for new astronauts to do science experiments on the space station, he decided to apply. He was selected by the National Space Development Agency of Japan to be an astronaut candidate in 1999. His first mission to the International Space Station was as a flight engineer for Expedition 28 and 29 that launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in June 2011. Following this mission, he will have logged 366 days in space across his 2 trips to space.
And to round it all out, mission specialist Konstantin Borisov was selected to be a cosmonaut in 2018, and this was his first trip to space. He has a Bachelor of Economics from the Russian Academy of Economics, a Master of Science in Operations Research and Systems Analysis from Warwick University in Coventry, UK, and a Master in Aircraft Life Support Systems from the Moscow Aviation Institute. He's worked for companies such as Volvo and the Boston Consulting Group. He is also an experienced freediving instructor and an international freediving judge. He will end this mission logging 199 days in space.
Dragon SpaceX, deorbit sequence start in 5 minutes. For awareness, this will occur during a TDRS handover. The next SpaceX call will confirm nominal trunk jettison.
Dragon Copy start of deorbit sequence in 5 minutes, and we'll catch you after 10.
There we have our first views of the morning inside Dragon Endurance with our Crew 7 crew.
So we are seeing a view here in the center of your screen. That's Commander Jasmin Moghbeli of NASA. This is her first space flight. And we are just about 2 minutes and 20 seconds away from that deorbit burn beginning. Another view inside of Dragon here on your left is Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov. And then to his right is ESA, or European Space Agency astronaut Andy Mogensen, NASA astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Satoshi Furukawa on the far right.
Now, when the crew egresses from the capsule, we will utilize the side hatch, which is actually in view right here. That is the side hatch. That has been closed since when they ingressed to the capsule on launch day. When they're up at the International Space Station, they utilize the forward hatch, which is the hatch at the top of the capsule, because that's where the International Docking Adapter is located, and that's what docks to the space station and allows them to ingress and egress onto the station and into the capsule during their stay. So, and we just got a call out saying that deorbit burn has begun. This burn is expected to last for about 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Dragon SpaceX, deorbit burn complete, performance nominal. Nose cone closure initiated.
And right on time. Great to
Copy.
Great to hear that deorbit burn was successful.
Up next, we're going to close the nose cone, which, as I mentioned earlier, is still open as we were using those 4 forward bulkhead Draco thrusters in order to perform that deorbit burn. So now that that deorbit burn is complete, and as we heard, it performed nominal, which basically means normal, which is good news.
And in the background, Dragon is going to work to currently inhibit those forward bulkhead Draco thrusters that we just used to complete the deorbit burn, ensuring it's safe to latch the nose cone shut for re-entry. And that nose cone will remain shut all the way through splashdown after this point.
SpaceX, nose cone secured for entry.
Dragon Copy, nose cone secured.
After Dragon Endurance has re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, a series of parachutes will deploy to slow the crew's descent. First will be the 2 drogue chutes, followed by the 4 main chutes to guide Dragon to its first contact with Earth since launching in August of last year. Dragon will automatically deploy these parachutes when different pressure and positioning sensors on the capsule detect that they're at the right speed and altitude.
Steps for entry briefing.
Dragon Blissy for entry briefing.
All right, want to remind you we have an expected LOS at 0934 Zulu, expected AOS at 0941 Zulu. All other times are going to be accurate per the tablet timeline. No other updates at this time for entry. Weather remains nominal and recovery forces remain ready to support.
Dragon copies. Expected LS from 0934 to 0941. And copy on the weather and recovery forces.
Good read back to us.
So we can see there the crew is now putting their visors down in preparation for entry interface and ultimately splashdown. This is also one of the final moments that we can see zero G.
Dragon tablets are secured, restraints are tightened, and visors are down, all 4 crew.
SpaceX copies all for crew entry preparation. We are 5 minutes to expected blackout. We'll see you on the other side at 0941.
Okay, copy, SpaceX. We'll see you on the other side.
It looks like we are getting our very first view of Dragon there on your screen. It is streaking through the sky as it continues to re-enter the atmosphere. Again, those parachutes have not quite deployed just yet, but once they are through the atmosphere successfully, we'll first see the drogue chutes deploy. We're targeting 2:43 a.m. Pacific for that, and just seconds later at 2:44 a.m. we'll see the main chutes deploy, and of course splashdown at 2:47 a.m. Pacific off the coast of Pensacola.
Yeah, this view is a thermal view, tracking cam from NASA's WB-57 plane. This looks like it is a live view coming from Megan, which is the recovery vessel positioned a safe distance away from the anticipated splashdown site. I believe this is the tracking cam, not thermal, more I'm not sure the right way to describe it, but it's a live view camera, but adjusted for the darkness of the night sky. So that's why the pixels on the camera might look a little wonky there.
Dragon SpaceX, comm check.
SpaceX Dragon, we have you loud and clear.
All right, so that was the voice.
We have you the same. Expect automated chute deployment.
That was the voice of Commander Jasmin Moghbeli.
Automated chute deployment.
Great to hear her voice on the other side of the comms blackout. And a great view here, that thermal cam showing us live reentry of the Crew 7 team on board Dragon Endurance. Once again, Dragon is reading its altitude as well as barometric pressure to determine when the appropriate, and there we can see the drogues deploying now, the appropriate time to deploy those drogue parachutes.
And so these drogue parachutes do help to stabilize and decelerate the vehicle ahead of the mains being deployed a short time after.
Expecting mains
Drogue
at
chute
about
descent
30.
rate nominal.
All right, that's great news there, indicating that the rate of deceleration with the drogue chutes is as expected. The main parachutes will deploy next. That will occur around the 6,500 foot mark above the ocean surface. And at that point in time, the capsule will be traveling around 120 miles per hour, and we can see those main parachutes deploying now. Those drogue parachutes will land in the ocean, and hopefully we will be able to recover them, but they kind of sink quickly sometimes, so the recovery teams will go out and try to recover those drogue parachutes for reuse on future cargo missions. We can see here.
Main chute descent rate nominal.
Great news there, indicating that the deceleration rate of the...
Copy 1000.
So at this point in time, Jasmin is now transitioning into calling out Dragon's altitude. Beautiful thermal view there of the capsule and 4 healthy mains. It's hard to tell in this view because, again, it is thermal, but the parachutes are orange and white. If you've seen a daytime launch, you'll know what they look like, and we should be able to see, hopefully...
800 meters.
What a beautiful sight. As you can see on your screen, we have
Dragon, splashdown.
SpaceX copies, see the same.
visual and audio confirmation for splashdown of Dragon Endurance. It has now returned home, and NASA astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli, along with ESA astronaut Andy Mogensen, JAXA astronaut Satoshi Furukawa, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov are back on Earth after an approximately 18.5-hour return journey from space.
We have NASA's Rebecca Turkington, a NASA Public Affairs Officer at the Johnson Space Center, who was on the boat during the re-entry and splashdown. So again, she had a great firsthand view of the crew returning and splashing down. So Rebecca, how can you hear us?
Dragon SpaceX is go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside in 1 minute.
That's great to hear, Rebecca, and we are hearing some communications to the crew.
Expect recovery personnel in 1 minute.
That we do expect the recovery personnel to begin to approach.
Permission to come on board via the display camera view only.
So while we work through that.
Hey, Sandra, how do you hear me?
And
Dragon, we're good to come on board.
Sandra,
all cameras if you'd like.
So I would love to know, Rebecca, how was the view from the recovery vessel? What was it like? Tell us everything.
Well, I think a lot of us on board the ship have a new core memory after seeing Dragon splash down this morning. We were about 1.5 nautical miles away from the landing zone, had a great view from the front of the ship. We saw the spacecraft appear across the horizon, a gorgeous reflection on the ocean, heard a really nice sonic boom, and we tracked Dragon all the way down to splashdown. And it's great to see Crew 7 back home, and wow, just what a way to start the morning.
I love to hear that. I can tell from the excitement in your voice that it was pretty spectacular. So I'm so happy you were able to witness this. Can you describe the journey of the recovery forces to get to this point and what that entailed?
Yeah, absolutely. So our original journey started almost close to a week ago in Florida, with so many teams coming in to make preparations for the crew's return. After Pensacola was selected as our splashdown site, the recovery team and the vessels were relocated here. And for splashdown this morning, it was an early start. We took a series of helicopters out to the recovery vessel starting at about 4.5 hours before splashdown. The medical team and recovery director were on that first flight,
Dragon
and then
SpaceX,
the rest of us followed after
hypergol
that.
sweeps and unfired ordnance checks are nominal. Rigging is now in progress.
That's great to hear, Rebecca, and we are hearing that the hypergol...
Stand by for PMC with the SpaceX flight surgeon.
Dragon copies well, standing by for PMC.
Our very last question for you, Rebecca, before we continue to talk through the recovery process is what's next to retrieve the crew?
Yes, I'm sure you'll walk everyone through how Dragon's going to be hoisted onto the recovery vessel. After the crew has egressed the vehicle on the ship, they will head over to the med bay where they'll get checked out by our medical team, and they'll also start to take off those white dynamic spacesuits. And after their medical checks, they will board a helicopter and head to the airport, where a plane is waiting to take them back to Houston to begin their post-flight period. I also wanted to mention that the crew is not the only ones on board Dragon. We also have really important cargo and science from experiments that are going to deliver benefits for people back here on Earth. So the cargo team will also start working this morning through the rest of the day to inventory and process those high-priority cargo items. Some teams are going to come in here to Florida to pick those up, and then others we are going to ship out to various NASA centers. So it's just been such a beautiful splashdown this morning, and so happy and proud to be here. And with that, I'll turn things back over to you at Hawthorne.
Well, there you had it, a firsthand experience of what it was like to witness Crew 7 splash down off of Pensacola. Thank you so much for your time, Rebecca. That was Rebecca Turkington, NASA Public Affairs Officer at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas.
I don't want to call this for sure, but this definitely feels like one of the fastest recoveries I've ever been a part of.
SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Recovery personnel are now completing final checks and stand by for translation to egress platform.
I can copy.
So at 6:14 a.m. Eastern, 3:14 a.m. Pacific, Dragon Endurance has been lifted up and out of the Gulf of Mexico and is now secure on our recovery vessel.
And so it does look like we are seeing that translation on your screen. And another view here, we can continue to see that translation as it occurs. It'll get put right in between those two gate-looking areas, and then the crew can begin to work hatch opening operations.
We can also see a SpaceX team member hosing the vehicle down. This helps to wash some of the salt water off. Obviously, we want to ensure that corrosion is controlled. Anything that comes into contact with salt water, salt in general, is quite corrosive, and so we're going to start basically rinsing the capsule off to try and remove as much of that salt water as possible.
Dragon SpaceX, stand by for side hatch opening and egress. We'll be passing you off to the recovery team, and see you back in Hawthorne soon.
Dragon copies, they're here.
So yeah, that side hatch access panel is where we are able to untorque as you can see in action now.
And the side hatch is open for the first time in 199 days. Looks like we're getting some waves from Crew 7. First face they've seen back on Earth since August. And Andy Mogensen now out of Crew 7 capsule. And you see he is getting assisted there. That is completely normal, and as expected, this will take place for all 4 crew members.
Yeah, this is standard procedure when we egress the NASA astronauts from Dragon. We assist them into, it's not quite a wheelchair, not a gurney, but we roll them back into the medical bay, and this just helps ensure their safety. What an experience it must be, this first time of feeling gravity for really kind of the first time, because if you're born into it and you don't really know what it's like to not feel it, I could imagine it would be quite an experience to feel it and really feel it for, at this magnitude for the first time.
And some waves there from NASA astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli. And Konstantin Borisov has successfully egressed. And Satoshi Furukawa, the last member of Crew 7, now out of the vehicle. From all of us at NASA and SpaceX, welcome home, Crew 7. And on behalf of the many incredible females who have supported Crew 7 and contributed to the success of this mission across NASA and SpaceX, ESA and JAXA and Roscosmos, happy Women's History Month. So long.